It is Three and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. BJ Bennett alongside Ben Troop with you this afternoon. We are glad to be with you, and we have an absolute ton to get to today. Obviously, it's been a great couple of days for the Atlanta Braves. The news last night, Braves signed Michael Harris to an 8-year, $72 million extension. We'll chat with Eric Cole of Battery Power coming up in about 15 minutes. A lot of Braves talk coming your way. Danny Reed, voice of the Georgia Southern Eagles, will join us as the start of the college football season right around the corner. We will also chat with Jeff Dantzler of the Georgia Bulldogs Radio Network and Bulldog Illustrated. Lawton Swan from Clemson Sports Talk will join us as well, as Clemson being picked in the preseason top 10 in most polls. But Ben, we will start with the Atlanta Braves. It has been a great couple of days for the Braves. 2 games against the Mets, 2 wins. You had Mike Soroka last night pitch in Rome, looked pretty good, but the big news, Braves signed Michael Harris, the young star, to an 8-year, $72 million extension. That includes a $15 million team option in 31, a $20 million team option in 32. You're talking about one of the best young players in baseball, may end up being the rookie of the year. I think he's the front runner to be the rookie of the year, has been great offensively, great defensively, has made a major impact on the Braves, have helped the Braves get closer to the Mets and build that lead as the top wildcard team in the National League. You look around and you start to look 5, 6, 7 years down the line with Atlanta, and you start to realize these guys are going to be here for quite some time. And you're talking about a local player gets a big-time contract, gets to stay at home in Atlanta. He's going to be a big part of the Braves' future, and that news was announced last night.
BJ, to give Anderson Anthopoulos a lot of credit. When you talk about building this culture, what he continues to do, look at what he's doing for the young players. Too often at times we think about, players go out there and outplay their rookie contract. You start hearing about arbitration this, arbitration that. He started it with, I know people saying what he did with Austin Riley and Michael Harris. I know Grissom got to be licking his chops saying, well, dude, if he could do this, I mean, who knows what's coming down the pipe for him. But this goes back to BJ, what he did for Ozzie Albies and Ronald Acuna Jr. People thought he shouldn't do that. Alex Anthopoulos, when people talk about circumstance and what he inherited, I mean, he's got FBI agents walking by him when he becomes the GM of the Braves. But look at what he's done. People kept saying, how are they going to spend money with the Braves? Well, I want to say last night, everybody's got re-signed from Ozzie to Matt Olson to Austin Riley to Michael Harris to Ronald Acuna. All those guys combined still make less money over the course of their contracts than Mike Trout. So when people start asking, damn, you just can't get no play. Yeah, because you're playing one guy $500,000. I mean, half a billion, I'm sorry. So, and BJ, when I told you, you was like, wait, what? I'm on the Twitter sphere, and I see Michael Harris going to stay in the A. And I go, what? Then I go and see it. It's 21 years old. Understanding that, hey, what? I played a little bit minor league baseball, just a little bit, got called up. I'm cemented as a center fielder for the next 8 years. How do they compensate me? $72 million with the potential to go to $100 million. BJ, I know, and once again, BJ, this same Alex Anthopoulos did right by Freddie Freeman. Who didn't do right? That would be Freddie Freeman's agent. Now, no one's going to ever say that Matt Olson is better than Freddie Free, but when you look at the hardest thing to do is to keep the band together. How do we keep great talent? Take care of them. Take care of them what? When they're still under their rookie deals. And if you get a guy like Matt Olson, you get a guy like Austin Riley coming off a back-to-back 30 home run season, even though he's going to probably end up with 40 this year, coming off a MVP caliber season in 2021. I love what he's doing, BJ, because number one, he didn't got to do it. Listen, got a first. Now I know people saying, "What about Dansby Swanson? What about Max Fried?" Give it time, because something you said.
And I think Max Fried is not a full free agent until the end of next year.
The likelihood of Max Fried going into 2023 without a new contract is slim and none. I think he's going to get taken care of. Mike Soroka pitched last night, so he's going to probably be back in 2023. Dansby Swanson, if they do want him back, right, that means the Grissom going to probably have to go to left field. I just think for what I'm seeing, BJ, the Braves are doing it the right way, and that's showing the Mets we don't got to go out there and spend a gazillion dollars for 1 year when it comes to a guy like Scherzer, even though he's on the mound tonight. And for the team like the Yankees, we don't got to empty out, our bank account to still be struggling. We can do it with our farm system, with guys that we covered, bringing in some free agents. Hey, Double A, keep doing what you're doing, sir, because the way in which he's doing it, BJ, it's fun. They're winning. They're coming off a World Series, and names you hear: Olsen, Harris, Grissom, Albies, Acuna, going to be here for
they're not going. Yeah, they're not going anywhere.
And
I think you're talking about, look, it is very hard to be consistently good in sports, right? Especially in pro sports. And to look at Atlanta and say, you are the defending World Series champion, okay? You are the team that everybody's chasing. We don't know what the rest of this season is going to hold, but it looks like you're going to be in the playoffs, okay? So there's a chance, I think a good chance, you're in the World Series once again. And you are what? A game away from being in the World Series the year before that.
Yes.
So you've been one of the standards in Major League Baseball, and it looks like this team is going to remain really, really, really good for years to come. Not just 2 or 3 years to come, 4 or 5, maybe even more than that. And I think Michael Harris, what a job he's done. Offensively, defensively. I know he had a Take 3 question the other day. I think he's probably going to be the Rookie of the Year, has had that batting average around 300. I think there are a lot of people that feel like he's going to win a Gold Glove even in his rookie season. And what I love about Michael Harris is it's not just the production. It's when you need a big play, when you need momentum, he's there. And you're talking about a guy now that gets the big contract. As you said, 8 years, $72 million, a $15 million option for 31, a $20 million option for 32. Happy for him, happy for the team. And man, there is just a lot to be happy about with the Braves right now. We'll get into, tonight you have Jake Odorizzi against Max Scherzer. A little bit later, we'll get into, again, Mike Soroka pitched in Rome last night and apparently looked really, really good.
Yep.
Now, granted, in minor league ball, but it's been, a year and a half, almost 2 years since he's pitched. Yeah. We'll get into that. But I think when you look at this team, you look at the young talent, you look at the fact that guys were signed to long-term contracts, you look at where the Braves are, you look at where the Braves have been, you look at where the Braves are going. This team, again, Ben, and I know you talk a lot about culture. I know you talk a lot about expectations. This team, I think, expects with a core group of guys to be competing for World Series for years to come.
BJ, coming from a person who understood that the culture got built when I was with the Tennessee Titans, I was blessed enough to be a part of a culture when I came to I come to college with a guy like Steve Spurrier that had to be rebuilt with a guy like Ron Zook. I got to a Tampa Bay Bucks team that the culture was kind of changing because John Gruden was on his way out to go to a culture team when I went to the Raiders, the then Oakland Raiders. Culture supersedes talent. You just have to insert talent into the culture. That's why it's easy. Not easy. I know you use the word. That's why Harris and Riley and Grissom and Strider can come into a situation and say, hey, I can work on my game while I'm trying to get better at it. Shout out for not making it hard, BJ. Like you said, listen, man, know what you're good at, right? Alexandropoulos knows what he's good at, and that is building a team and trusting Snit to build a culture. So far, so good. Because, BJ, if they do the unthinkable and go back to back, because that doesn't happen in sports anymore.
That would be something. Look, not saying it's impossible.
Yes.
Got a ways to go before you do that. Again, you face Max Scherzer tonight. You face Jake DeGrom tomorrow. And I think with Odorizzi tonight, I still think maybe with some uncertainty with Max Fried, I don't know that a starter's been announced for tomorrow night. But look, to talk about the series, you're talking about going back to back. The last time you played the Mets, it did not go well. And I think people were looking around going, okay, maybe the Mets are, better than the Braves this year. Well, we've played them twice in Atlanta the last 2 days, and we've seen how that's gone. What you won game one, what 13-1 or whatever it was, and then you shut them out.
Yep.
And look, I was asking yesterday to talk about last night's game. What are we going to get out of Charlie Morton? What are the expectations for Charlie Morton? He had an ERA that was in the 4.2s or 4.3s entering last night. What did he give you? 12 strikeouts of shutout. I think he got you into the 7th inning of shutout ball. So the Braves have a lot of momentum on the field. The Braves have a lot of momentum off the field. This is a big game tonight, but the Atlanta Braves, it's been a good few days. The Braves are making a statement right now.
At the end of the day, BJ, talent wins games. Culture wins championships. You don't believe me? The Braves are the defending World Series champs. They're adding to their culture. They're taking care of their young guys. Double A is being trusted. Snit has not wrecked this. Snit has not wrecked this freaking Ferrari. And somewhere Blooper is texting people before he runs out with the Braves flag. Everything is all good in Truist Park.
And oh, by the way, you talk about all the young players. Vaughn Grissom continues to hit and get on base.
Seven games. He scored a run in 7. I think he's the first player to go 7-0. And I want to say they haven't lost since he's been called up. I'm thinking.
Yep, eight wins in a row for the
Let's do
Atlanta
it.
Braves,
Let's do
and
it.
it's Jake Odorizzi again, 4-4 with a 3.80 ERA against Max Scherzer tonight. Max is 8-2 with a 1.93 ERA. But we'll get the latest on all this. We'll chat with Eric Cole of Battery Power. He will join us when we come back. Danny Reed's going to join us. Jeff Dantzler. We'll chat with Lawton Swan as well. But Braves baseball with Eric Cole from Battery Power next. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. It is 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. BJ Bennett alongside Ben Troop. And, of course, college football started the season right around the corner. Fall camps underway, including in Statesboro. And with us now to talk about the Georgia Southern Eagles, the voice of the Georgia Southern Eagles, Danny Reed, joins us. Danny, good afternoon. How are you?
Good to talk to you, boys. Doing well.
How's fall camp gone? I know the season is right around the corner. Real football, games that count, coming up quickly. How's fall camp gone?
It's definitely looked different with the ball being in the air a little bit more, but we were expecting that after the way the spring practice and the spring game went. But for a 3-9 team, you'd be hard-pressed to understand that that's what happened just a few months ago here. With as energetic, as enthusiastic as those practices have been, it's been a testament to Coach Helton and the staff for instilling that mindset, the toughness, the discipline, the united. The guys have bought into it. And part of it is you do have so much of a veteran presence on that squad, especially on defense with Justin Ellis, Dylan Springer, and Todd Bradley Glenn coming back. You've got Derek Canteen coming back from injury. And then offensively, even though Kyle Van Treese has only been in town for a couple of months, the guys have flocked to him. I think that they're going to surprise some people. It's just a matter of when it all decides to click. And who knows, maybe it does very, very soon going into the first game, but that remains to be seen.
Danny, Brian Ellis comes over from, Western Kentucky. You already know the type of offense the type of offensive numbers they was able to put up in 2021. You talk about the veteran presence being more on defense than offense. This offense is going through different offenses in the last, 2 or 3 years. How has that offense looked? And should everybody at Paulson be expecting to see the ball being put through the air a little bit more?
Yeah, I think they're going to have to, but if it ends up being a victory, it doesn't really matter what it looks like. It's simply that Georgia Southern has more points on the board than the other side does, and you could go back to Irk Russell to say, well, 45 is more than 42, we'll take it every time. So maybe that's where Eagle fans should be thinking about in regards to what it looks like on the field and what it looks like on the scoreboard. But when you come from a place like Western Kentucky last year that had the most prolific passing offense in college football history, yeah, it's understandably nervous to think that for a place that is predicated and has its claim staked on running the football, it is going to look a little bit different. In fact, I would venture to say the ball's probably going to be in the air twice as much as fans are accustomed to seeing, but that doesn't mean that the team isn't looking to run the ball between 25 and 40 times per game, especially when you've got so much backfield talent with Gerald Green and Jalen White coming back. But if you can find a way to maximize your speed and athleticism on the outside, that's only going to do more to help that running game as they try to achieve as much balance as they can.
We're chatting with Danny Reed, voice of the Georgia Southern Eagles. And Danny, especially early in the season, I mean, how fluid do you think the offensive game plan is going to be? I mean, will it be, hey, we do want to throw it this many times, or will some of it be, kind of we'll see how it's going, and maybe there'll be more in-game adjustments earlier in the season than later in the season? Or kind of how do you see the evolution of the offense happening this fall?
And I think that you put it right. It's going to be how it evolves. What it looks like against Morgan State on September the 3rd is not the way that it's going to look against Marshall and Appalachian State and hopefully a Sun Belt Conference championship game by the time we get to the month of December. They need to see what they have and where they can be the most successful. In a way, Morgan State will be helpful, assuming that they can handle their business like they should. Morgan State is a team that has struggled for a long time. They only have 3 winning seasons in the last 2 decades. No MEAC championship since 2014. Even though the Eagles have made it interesting in FCS games in the past few years, if they can just do what they're supposed to do, that one shouldn't be a problem so far as they can simply execute in all 3 phases. But in another way, a game like that, if it goes too well, maybe you deceive yourself a little bit because you've got to head out to Lincoln, Nebraska in week 2 against the Cornhusker team that, yeah, they've got their own problems with 5 straight losing seasons, but it's still a Big Ten opponent, still a place that Georgia Southern has never been, and still in front of 90,000 people. So I would expect a lot more passing, but I would also expect a commitment to the run because talking with Richard Owens last week, the new O-line coach, you can still be a smash-mouth football team and throw the football. With those guys up front, those 5 or whoever ends up lining up on the offensive line, they still have to be able to have a mentality of toughness and physicality, whether the ball's being thrown 5 yards or 35 yards downfield. Now, of course, we want to see the ball on the ground as much as possible with the running game, but if an offensive line can set the tempo and have the right mentality, as long as you score points, it doesn't really matter what it looks like.
I mean, speaking of mentality, you think about a guy like Clay Helton. He was the big domino. When you talk about where was he going to end up, Jared Bingo goes out there and gets the guy that he covered in Clay Helton. How has he been in fall camp, especially with the fact that he's been here, last year, being able to see some of these guys returning in the spring as well as, in the bowl game last year?
And we're coming up on 8 months now since he got here, and ordinarily you would maybe have somebody in place by January. And he has said that the biggest gift that he has gotten since getting this job is the month of November, having to come in with 4 games left in the regular season, evaluate what was a tough situation, see what he liked, see what he wanted to keep, see what he needed to tweak. And he was so taken by 20,000 people being there for a BYU game that, yeah, it was against the top 15 team, but Georgia Southern was really struggling. People still showed up. They were still showing their support and their passion. And it's really carried over into spring practice and now into fall camp. The way that these guys have related to each other, it's been very direct how these coaches have said, look, a lot of us weren't here last year. We understand what happened. Look at this as a clean slate. You can be whoever you want to be. You may only be here for 1 year, like a Kyle Van Treese. He's only going to have this season in Statesboro to make it what he wants to. And for Helton, to be quite honest, it's a new start for him. He had a chance to coach as the head man at USC for 6 years. He got let go 2 games into last season to start this chain of events. But for him, he's looking at being back in this part of the country where he's from. He's coached at a number of schools in this part of the country. USC was 46-24 during his tenure out there, so it's not as if he struggled. They won 11 games. They won 10 games. He won a Rose Bowl, Pac-12 championship. Guy knows how to win. It's just a matter of what it's going to look like when Pat start popping here in a few weeks.
Danny, what has Coach Helton said about expectations and kind of the build? I know sometimes those things can be hard to define, but what has he said about expectations in Statesboro and kind of defining success early on in his tenure?
It's been about installing mentality. It's been buying into the process, and really it's about trying to establish as much momentum as you can. And a lot of that has to do with what's taking place off the field, with the various renovations that have taken place at Paulson over the last, I'd say about 18 months, even more taking place going to the opener with new seats going in on the home side. Right beneath the Eagle Club in the center section, drink rails on the top side. You've got low seating that's going to be put in behind the brick wall on the near sideline, nearest the brick wall. The Field of Dreams is being rebranded. They're adding more of the field cabanas. Of course, the indoor practice facility is being constructed in half of the tailgate lot. They're planning on opening that in the spring of 23. That's how you build momentum, by showing people where the program is headed if you have the right kind of investment, both with your wallets and with your support, buying season tickets, and simply being there to support this program, not just for football. This is a holistic thing that they rolled out with the We Need You ticketing program. Of course, people are going to look at that as being football-centric, but if you can't find a way to support all 17 sports, then ultimately it's not going to mean very much. But with this football program, if they can all see things the same way going into the season opener, regardless of what the wins and losses look like by the end of this season, maybe it'll be a bowl, maybe it'll be a conference championship, have no way of knowing, but they simply have to go back to the do-right mentality that Coach Russell brought with him 40 years ago. And if they can just do that game in, game out, evolve, improve, then they're going to get to where they want to be.
And even sticking with that, I mean, a lot of times, everybody wants to go, what do you do in your first year? What do you do in your first year? I mean, this schedule, it's brutal. I mean, top to bottom, even when those guys getting guys like Old Dominion and Marshall, coming over, to the Sun Belt. But what are realistic expectations? Because what happens is everybody expect the coach to come from USC. They expect to win. Is it about how they look on the field? Yes, you want to win the game, but it's about how they look against competition like the Apps, like the Coastal Carolinas, and really how they look against the newcomers in this conference.
It is a daunting schedule, and considering that of the 4 new teams in the league, 3 are in your division. You're looking at a trip in October going up to Old Dominion. You get a chance to host James Madison. You get a chance to host Marshall, and that back-to-back at the end of the year with Marshall and App State at Paulson to round out the regular season. That's about as tough of a 2-game home stretch as you're going to find in this conference or maybe anywhere in the G5. And at the outset, it's tough to say what a reasonable expectation would be relative to on the field. I think that they've handled their own in terms of the right mentality, attacking every day, being energetic and enthusiastic. If anybody had a chance to go to the scrimmage last Saturday, they saw the defense come out hot. They saw the offense close very well, but there were a lot of positives on both sides, and plenty of freshmen made plays on both sides of the ball, and that continues this weekend with the preseason showcase at Memorial Stadium in Savannah. Looking to have a great crowd starting at 10 a.m. for another scrimmage. They're going to be holding a Little Eagles clinic after that for some goodwill and to tap into that Savannah market even more. But this is all fitting together. Nobody really knows what it's going to look like on September the 3rd. They have the hopes of what number of points the offense is going to score, how many stops the defense is going to make, and of course on special teams. That's the third phase that Coach Helton has been adamant about in the overall transformation of this program. But if they can simply find ways to improve each day leading into the season, and then realize that that improvement process just doesn't end because you start 1-0. This is a long road, and it's one that could click this year, but it's also one that could take some time. But they just have to be bought into what they're doing and just be committed to the process.
Danny Reed, voice of the Georgia Southern Eagles, here with us. Talk about that Sun Belt East in particular, where I know a lot of pundits around the country have said this is one of the toughest divisions in college football you're going to find anywhere.
There's no doubt about that, and we haven't even played a game yet. You've already got people comparing the Sun Belt East to the SEC West. So those are pretty lofty, but relative to G5 as opposed to P5, maybe they're not that far off. And look, 5-10 years down the line, who's to say maybe the Sun Belt finds a way to become one of those power conferences with the moves that they have made just in the last couple of years. That may sound even lofty, but just that upward trend that Carl Benson and now Keith Gill putting this league on, it's been really impressive to see that national profile improve. And Marshall has long been a really good program. Georgia Southern, a former Southern Conference rival of them, have not played since 1996 when Randy Moss caught 2 touchdowns at Paulson Stadium. So I would imagine that would come up that week once that game gets here. James Madison is a team that Georgia Southern played a lot in the late 80s and the early 90s, one of the first true rivals in the history of this program, and a fairly recent rival going back to the tail end of the FCS days. Old Dominion and Georgia Southern met in the playoffs in 2011 and 2012, and there are people in Norfolk that still talk about that loss when they gave up 28 fourth-quarter points to the Eagles at SB Ballard Stadium. That kind of knocked them off course for a while. I think they've only had one winning season since. They had 10 victories in 2016, but I got a lot of respect for Ricky Ronnie, and his staff is going to be stressed even more with Dave Patenaude resigning just a couple of days ago as the offensive coordinator. Don't get a chance to see Southern Miss this year, but that'll become a really good rivalry with Eagles against Golden Eagles. But the thing that Keith Gill wanted to emphasize, they went after programs that had passionate fan bases in dedicated college towns, as opposed to attacking media markets. They're going for regional rivalries. I think this is going to be a home run for this conference, and I think that the profile is only going to continue to improve as we go about this.
And Danny, even sticking with that, you talked about a little bit before all the different renovations going on, on campus. You talk about the city of Statesboro just welcoming a guy like Clay Helton. Let's face it, everybody was wondering, where's Clay Helton going to go? It's got to feel good knowing that a city like Statesboro that's deeply enriched in what they do as far as like athletics, they have a coach, that's coming in high profile. You got big time players. How is the city as a whole right now with Statesboro embracing everything going on with them Georgia Southern Eagles?
It's funny, whenever coaches get hired, a lot of times you hear them say, well, the place that they're at feels like home. It feels like home, feels like they've been there their entire lives. But in the case of Coach Helton, he was born in Gainesville, Florida, when his father was working alongside Steve Spurrier. So this is literally his home, his part of the country. Gainesville's just 3 hours to the south of here. His wife, Miss Angela, getting into town within the last month to 6 weeks. So they're finally getting their living situation set up. He's got a son who's trying to make waves of Western Kentucky with brother Tyson, playing for the Hilltoppers up there in Bowling Green. So it's a different family dynamic that they're all trying to get used to, different situations, and trying to get embraced by the community. They understand, this being the Helton family, they understand the kind of tradition and the passion that exists here just off of I-16 in Statesboro, with 6 national championships, 11 conference titles, and winning 3 bowl games since becoming eligible first in 2015. They look at someone that sounds like the Georgia Southern head coach, that they believe that he is going to get this program back on track. And it seems like, for the most part, people have embraced that it may look a little bit different than it has over the previous 4 decades. The point that we brought up before, if Georgia Southern wins more than it loses, if they end up winning a lot, whatever it looks like on the field is ultimately going to be embraced. And, of course, Coach Helton will have a big hand in that.
Danny Reed, voice of the Eagles, our guest. Danny, thank you so much for the time.
You got it, guys. Thank you.
Danny Reed, voice of the Georgia Southern Eagles, and the start of the season right around the corner. We'll come back with more 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. BJ Bennett, Ben Troop, back here with you on Three and Out. Ben, the college football playoff has announced that the national championship game in 2025 will be played in Atlanta. In 2026 will be played in Miami. So the national title game in 2025 in Atlanta, in 2026 in Miami. Probably fair to assume Georgia, Alabama. I mean, might be involved.
Yeah, and BJ, isn't it ironic? It's back in Atlanta just when the college football playoff. I think the contract either had just going to be run out or they're going to be renegotiated something different. But yes, the mecca and epicenter of college football will be hosting the college football national championship in 2025 in South Florida. Look out. It will be there in 2026.
I was going to say, sounds pretty good. So, as you said, 2025, the national championship game in Atlanta, 2026, the national championship game in Miami. All right, I'll ask you right here real quick. Will Georgia be in either one of those games?
I definitely see them in one of them. I don't see them slowing down anytime soon, BJ. I know they get it with big time recruiting. So yes, them Georgia Bulldogs, they're gonna be here to stay for a long time, real similar to what them Braves doing these days.
That's right. We'll come back. Speaking of the Georgia Bulldogs, Jeff Dantzler will join us in hour 2 after Take 3. He is with the Georgia Bulldogs Radio Network and Bulldog Illustrated. Also coming up in the final hour, Lawton Swan will talk some Clemson Tigers football. Georgia preseason top 3 in just about every poll. Clemson preseason top 10 listed as the ACC favorite. So a lot to get to. BJ Bennett, Ben Troop here with you on 3 and Out. Back here with you on 3 and Out. We'll chat with Jeff Dantzler coming up in just a little bit of the Georgia Bulldogs Radio Network and Bulldog Illustrated. Ben, I'll ask you this because we're going to get into it later in the hour. Stetson Bennett had an iconic year last year. Just quickly, we'll tease it, but what are your expectations for him this fall, statistically, in terms of production, in terms of chasing another national title? Where are you in terms of expectations for Stetson Bennett for 2022?
I expect 2022 for him to be what he was in 2021, the most impactful player on the Georgia Bulldogs. Not the best player, not the most talented player. He is the most impactful player for the Georgia Bulldogs. So say what you want to say about him in 2021. They're not winning it without him, even if he did have the greatest defense we ever seen, BJ. I expect him to carry that over in 2022. He was in a room full of 5 stars since he got there, and he has been the best of the bunch. I expect him to carry on that in 2022.
We will bring PJ Zuko in. PJ, how are you?
Oh, doing great, man. Doing great. Happy to be here. And talk about some great points, man. Let's work all this out.
Let's get it.
I was just checking the levels. You guys were
No,
I was checking the levels.
That's why I paused for a second and I was like, you know what?
I'm not Kevin. I'm not used to running the board and running the computer thing and running
it's okay.
I can't handle it.
Well, especially think about it. Peel back the curtain a little bit. Normally it's just me and Christian in here. He's running the board, all that good stuff. So you wouldn't know what it's been a while.
I couldn't find the Take 3 music file. I mean, I got all kind of stuff going on.
There's a lot going on in the background.
Yes. Take 1. LeBron, huge deal. Awesome. 2 years, $97 million deal with the Lakers. What are expectations for LeBron and the Lakers moving forward?
I don't know. It's hard to keep track. This at least solidifies him there in LA for a little bit, which at the end of the day, I know there were rumors and buzz going around and all this other stuff, but LeBron has always been someone who has appreciated, I feel like, he wants to go out and win more championships, all this other stuff, but he appreciates certain organizations and certain history in the NBA. So once he got to LA, I was going to be very surprised if he went anywhere else, to be honest with you, but before he retires, before that last year, depending on where and if Bronny James gets to the NBA and if he could be playing with him at that point. But that being said, I didn't really see him going a lot of places. LeBron is the kind of player and is the kind of person that people are going to come there to play with him. I don't feel like he's going to, especially at this point of his career. I know he went to Miami and that was D-Wade's team, all that good stuff. But at this point in his career, I don't feel like he's going to be chasing things a lot of other places. So the contract does make sense to me. Expectations-wise, though, it's hard to say because if they have a healthy team and a decent supporting cast around him, other than those other superstars, then it could be, sky's the limit. It could be the most winning team of all time in the regular season and go on and win a championship, right? If you have injury issues, not only with LeBron, but of course with Anthony Davis, with everything that he's been through, with Russ looking like a shell of himself, which is looking more and more likely, then it could be middle of the pack, maybe missing the playoffs again. Because while LeBron is still just, it seems like it's impossible to, but every single year he adds something else to his arsenal. He's getting older. Everyone looks at him like he's a superhuman, whatever. He is getting older. He can only carry a team so far nowadays. And last year was almost to the playoffs. Couldn't get it done. But it's just so reliant on the people around him being healthy and being good right now. So I'd say probably if the team stays how it is, probably bottom of the West in the NBA, probably the bottom of the West making it to the playoffs as a 6 or 7 seed. Because that's the NBA that there's so many different good teams, especially there in the West as well. But I'd say probably 6 to 8, and he can beat anybody in the playoffs in a 7-game series. But who's he going to have around him is the main question.
Yeah. What LeBron is doing right now, he just added to his legacy, BJ, as far as he want to be the all-time leading scorer. I think he can surpass that. He gets to pass Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He's number 2 on the list right now, but I do agree with something PJ said. I mean, LeBron has been carrying his team since he's been in the NBA, even when he was down there in Miami. And I think it's going to be, what does Anthony Davis want to be? What does he want his legacy to be? And let's call it what it is. LeBron wants the 5th championship. It is going to be extremely difficult because the NBA has caught up to him individually. He's going to have to help his team collectively, but I think that LeBron wants to be able to say, hey, when you play for the Lakers, it's championship or bust. I don't care who's on the team. And BJ, I know you talk about when Smush Parker was there with Kobe. The expectation is that you're there to win a championship. I don't know, and it's really going to come down to 2 guys: Russell Westbrook, top 5 in the league in salaries, and Anthony Davis, who hadn't shot a basketball for like 3 months. The last time we saw him. So I do agree with what PJ said. You don't have to, it ain't LeBron, it's those around him. If I'm the oldest guy, I might be the oldest guy in the NBA, depending on who it is. And then you telling me I'm still the best player on this team? It's going to come down to, 1, he wants to add to his legacy being an all-time leading scorer, but 2, he wants to get another coveted trophy because BJ and PJ, because if he gets his 5th, he gets to say, hey, man, I've done something that few have done. I've gotten 5 chips. And he get to tell Kobe, hey, man, I didn't do them all here in L.A., but I think I'm doing you proud. So for me, BJ adding to his legacy and scoring, and hopefully trying to get back to the playoffs and get back to the final.
Take 2, a record-setting $76.4 million deal for the Chargers safety Derwin James. Is he the best safety in the NFL?
Actually, it's funny. Like, I saw a couple lists before we came on and started talking about this, and a lot of places have him number 2. If not number 1, have him number 2. I'd probably put him up there, though. I mean, I know there's some other guys that are doing the same thing, and let's be honest, you better have a good safety and a few good safeties nowadays in the NFL, because no doubt it's a passing league for sure. Has been for a little bit. And the Chargers just solidified that, as they've also added some pieces throughout the offseason, and man, they're gonna be a fun team to watch for sure. I would put him up there, though. I mean, again, like, I know there's some guys to argue against that. I know Bayard out of Tennessee is insanely good as well. But just the impact, I think, that Derwin James has made on the team and makes on every team he goes to. I mean, remember talking plenty about this guy at Florida State. He's all over the field all the time. So I think that alone kind of puts him at number 1 for me. There's some guys close 2nd, close 3rd, and I'm sure they'll be looking for a paycheck here soon too, since he kind of reset the market there a little bit. But I'd put him at number 1 going into the season.
I mean, BJ, I will say this: Kevin Byard, and I mean, I'm not putting my front runner shoes on for what he's done. I mean, 2021, he was a first team All Pro. I mean, been a 2-time All Pro, first team All Pro season, and he's done it as of recent. But as far as like impactful, I think Derwin James is the number 1 impactful safety in the game, because I mean, he's all bigger than being all over the field. He's a physical presence when he's out there. I mean, you can't coach what, 6'2", 6'3", 220, 100, over 100 tackles last year. He hits everything that moves, and you can do a lot with a guy like that. You need him to blitz, he can blitz. You need him to be a guy, ninth guy in the box, he can be that. You need him to cover, he can cover. He doesn't have limitations. The only thing he's limited by is when you're that big, that fast, that strong, that elusive, it's injuries. But first year in the league, first team All Pro, first year in the league. Been the 2nd team All Pro, and I go back to, I think about, what he does for that back end. I mean, oh my God, you got Bosa, you got Khalil Mack, you got Asante Samuels, Jr. I mean, I just think that when you look at how good this defense is, if you ask Keenan Allen, hey man, who's the guy that makes this team go? Derwin James. What? Derwin James makes this team go. And congratulations to him though, because BJ, something we talked about. When you deal with the injury bugs, a lot of times that scares people away, but his impact is so undeniable when he's out there. Listen, you know what 3-3 is not out there. Bottom line. So congratulations to him. Well deserved. And hey man, now it's time to go out there and ball.
I love what you say about the physical presence too, because like one of my favorite things about watching like the defensive backfield and guys coming over the middle or whatever is when a player, like some of the best players in NFL history, make plays on the ball and make negative plays for the offense without even touching a player or the ball. because guys are dropping balls because they're worried about getting hit by the guy coming over the middle, right? Like he could not even be close to them, and it's still in the back of their mind. So like Derwin James is one of those players for sure.
Take 3. Matt Stafford, obviously Super Bowl last year, dealt with some elbow injuries last year as well, has been dealing with some elbow stuff during camp. Did say his right elbow feels good and he's on the right track, but still been dealing with some elbow soreness. Is that a concern? You obviously wish him the best, but is that a concern at this point, potentially his elbow?
It is, and this is why. He's not getting any younger. Matthew Stafford is a guy that threw the ball a lot with his first 12 years. In Detroit, you look at what he's meant. Since he's been in the National Football League, BJ, he was the first to do everything. I think the first to 20,000, first to 30,000, and all these different things. And hey, man, he's a gunslinger. But he's earned the right to get some time off, due to injury because, hey, man, you've already proven what you mean to this team. Coming off a Super Bowl win, we know what you can do throwing the football. You was one of the most talented players. Your talent has never ever been a question, but you have to take care of your body in a different way as you get older. The only two things that is going to keep a quarterback from doing anything of significance is his shoulder and his elbow. And it's always, just don't tell me it's his elbow. Just don't tell me if it's his shoulder. It's like Tommy John if you're a pitcher. But I will say that they're giving him time. I think he's going to be ready for the first game of the year. I think he's a guy that has a veteran group around him. And I think Sean McVay and company, they know, hey, man, we trying to do the unthinkable. Go back to back. Because I know Alex Anthopoulos is doing things with the Braves, but the best general manager in sports got to be the GM, for the freaking Rams. He has signed everybody. Cooper Kupp, come on in. Jalen Ramsey, come on in. Bobby Wagner, come on in. So, yes, but when it comes to Matthew Stafford, take care of your elbow. I think BJ and PJ, they're gonna take the slow, the slow and steady approach because you're gonna need Matthew Stafford out there for the first game.
As they should. And yeah, it is something to be worried about for sure because, yeah, as an older quarterback who's gotten beat up. I joked with Christian on Second Down a couple days ago. It seems like every time you see a highlight tape of Matt Stafford in Detroit, he's like rushing the team. There's like 4 or 5 different ones. He's like rushing the team down to try and get like a game-winning touchdown, and every time he's limping because he just got demolished because that offensive line was always terrible. And like people around him were bad other than Calvin Johnson, right? So he's been through it, So yeah, give him all the time he needs before he comes back. But hopefully, this is my thing. Like I know, especially like you said, the shoulders, the elbows with quarterbacks are going to be the first thing that really causes of concern, and you want him to take as much time as possible. I hope he can come back from this just as strong as he was before, because that is kind of something that. It's hard to get. It's like a hamstring, right? Like it's hard to get away from it. It's hard to get out of you. So hopefully this is something that he can play through this year and he's 100% healed up from when he comes back. Because he's one of the guys, I think he's one of the best good, like feel good stories in the NFL when you talk about everything he had to go through and then going to LA and winning that championship. And he's always someone that I've looked back on and I'm like, you hope there's certain guys in the NFL, and there have been, that can walk away on their own terms and can go out a winner of some kind. And Matt Stafford's always been one of those guys I kind of hope is able to do that. And not to mention he's going to need that elbow to not only throw to some big playmakers on that offense, but now also I know they lost OBJ, but Allen Robinson's there. So finally playing with a good quarterback. So, hey, let's see what he can do when he gets back to 100%.
That's take 3. Thank you, PJ. Of course, you hear PJ every day with Christian Gokill on Second Down. PJ, thanks. And I appreciate the stall earlier when I'm trying to find the files and everything.
Yeah,
so.
It kind of took me a minute to register, and then I was like, all right, I'm just going to keep going. I don't know what I'm going to say, but he needs some time here. So it's all right.
We'll come back. We'll chat with Jeff Dantzler next here on 3 and Out. BJ Bennett, Ben Troop, back here with you on 3 and Out. Fall camp is underway all across college football, including in Athens, for the defending national champions. And expectations, of course, very high once again. And with us now to talk about the Dogs from the Georgia Bulldogs Radio Network and Bulldog Illustrated, good friend of the show, Jeff Dantzler. Jeff, good afternoon. How are you?
Oh, doing great. It's always terrific to be on with you guys from down in the beautiful Golden Isles, and just like everybody, ready to get it kicked off.
Thank you so much for coming on. So what are the big storylines here? I mean, look, you're the defending national champion. You have a lot of talent you have to replace, especially defensively. What are the priorities here in fall camp ahead of a big week 1 game with Oregon?
I think that's the question a lot of teams are trying to ask, and I know y'all can both speak to this. And Ben, obviously, he knows this as well as anyone. But I think at this point, everybody's been trying to figure themselves out. And for Georgia, I think a couple of areas on defense, it's finding those heir apparents. You do have some very talented players back, like Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, and Keely Ringo. But that next wave of guys, are they in the right spots? I think this is also the time of year where coaches are looking for that leadership to develop. And that's not the type of thing you can really force. I think it's an organic deal. And as talented as Georgia was last year, they just had one of those perfect storms where the best players, guys like Nakobe Dean and Jordan Davis, Samir White, Jamari Salyer, those guys were the leaders as well. So I would say right now for Kirby, probably the biggest thing he's looking for, obviously advancement with talent at every position, but also finding out who those leaders are for the 2022 team.
Jeff, when you think about a guy like Stetson Bennett, right? People always want to talk about what he isn't, but compared to what he is, how impactful has he been since he's been at Georgia, and how, I guess like stabilizing, does he make an offense that everybody's only talking about the running game and these 3-headed horsemen at the tight end position, but the fact that Stetson Bennett is going to be the one under center has got to make Kirby and the Georgia faithful know, hey man, you in good hands.
No doubt about it. And I think with Stetson, what you have is somebody who's been reliable. At some points in his career, he might have looked like the 4th, maybe even the 5th choice at quarterback, but he's always shown up. And because of that, he has earned the respect of the players in the locker room. And what took him next level, when it was pretty clear that he was going to be the guy after Georgia's win over Arkansas and then headed out to Auburn, it's what Stetson can do with his mobility. And he is fleet. And what he's able to create with his feet. I think that's what separated him. And Georgia's going to need to continue to utilize that. But there is no question. His story is remarkable. It so dwarfs Rudy when you're talking about the story of a walk-on, what he's been able to accomplish. And now you talk about being unique. This is the first time in his career that he knows, and we know, that he is the starting quarterback heading into a season.
So, Jeff, what's the idea for the offensive identity? Because I know you have great depth at running back. As Ben mentioned, you have great depth at tight end. You have one of the best and most proven quarterbacks in the country. You have a talented offensive line. You have talented wide receivers. What do you think the goal is from a balance standpoint, and just how productive can this group be?
Well, Georgia has always been, going back to Frank Sinkwich and Charlie Trippi, Georgia has always been a team that loves to run the football. It's in our DNA. It's what we do, run the football and throw off a play action. Now, the question is, when you see teams stack it up, and we saw that several times last year, can Georgia lead with the pass and then finish with the run? And I think this team's going to have the ability to do that. And, you talk about great tight ends. Obviously, Brock Bowers leads the way. The matchups and the mismatches I think that Georgia can create at tight end is going to be a big X factor for the Bulldogs this season.
This defense replaces a ton. 5 guys from that defense winning the first round last year. It's not like they are lacking talent, but you replace some big time names like Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean, and Walker and different ones. But how long do you think it's going to take for this defense to get in sync? It's not. I understand they're going to be working the kinks out against Oregon. I know Dan Lanning. While you understand that defense's tendencies, you got to go up against it now. But Jeff, how long do you give this defense to start really gelling, especially when you got guys like Nolan Smith, and Carter and a company kind of leading a stable of young guys who looking to make a big impact in 2022?
Well, that's the big question. Can Georgia beat Oregon? Can Georgia beat South Carolina? Can Georgia win the games it's supposed to win and be in position heading to Jacksonville at say 7-0 or 6-1? And at that point, then, can some of the younger players on defense really start to emerge? I mean, this defense is not going to be as good as it was last year. It's one of the great defenses in the history of college football. You're replacing the Outland Trophy winner, the Butkus Award winner, and the first overall pick of the NFL draft, 5 first-round picks. So it's not going to be as good. But can this defense be championship caliber come Florida and beyond? And that's something that only time will tell. There are some very good players on this defense. There's no question. But how are they going to be in the leading roles? I do know this, though, that the way that Kirby and this staff have recruited, there is very good depth there. You know, a big question is going to be Chris Smith, Keely Ringo, Jalen Carter, Robert Beal, Nolan Smith, those veterans who are back. Are they going to be able to show the way? And Jalen Carter, I mean, guys, we know Georgia last year had 4 great defensive linemen. Now, this year's Georgia's got 1. He's going to get double team. He's going to get triple team. Can other guys take advantage of that and step up and make the plays?
Jeff Dantzler, Georgia Bulldogs Radio Network, Bulldog Illustrated, here with us on 3 and Out. Talk about that first game with Oregon. You have Dan Lanning, of course, taking over there with the Ducks. You have Bo Nix, former Auburn quarterback. How do you see that matchup, and how big of a challenge is that going to be for the Dogs?
This game is fascinating to me because Georgia and Oregon haven't played since 1977. Obviously, completely different sides of the country, but there's tremendous familiarity because of those factors. I mean, Georgia's gone against Bo Nix 3 years in a row. Dan Lanning knows Georgia in and out. And I was talking with a couple other buddies who work with the football team who said, you know, and he knows, you know, which guy at cornerback might not be able to go to his left quite as quick, or what might get under this linebacker's skin. So even though these teams haven't played in 45 years, there's not going to be any secrets with Kirby Smart and Dan Lanning. What Oregon is going to do defensively is going to mirror exactly what Georgia's done. They got a great linebacker, Noah Sewell. They got a tremendous front. You know, Oregon always loves to go up tempo. They've got all 5 of their starting offensive linemen back. So I think that's an immediate test for this Georgia defensive front. And the fact that this game is indoors on a carpet, you know, Georgia's not going to have that advantage of playing Oregon in the heat like the Gators are going to have playing Utah in the swamp. So I think it sets up for a really great game Labor Day weekend in Atlanta.
Kirby Smart said the SEC media days, they will not be the hunted. They're going to be the hunters, and obviously he's coming off a national championship. Kirby Smart, big time extension and well deserved. How has this temperament been? Because the one thing about Kirby Smart, it seems to be, he doesn't switch up how he is. Win or lose, he's going to be intense. Win the game by 30, win the game by 10, win the national championship. How has he been with everything going on around Georgia at this point?
Well, there's certainly been, as you guys know, be it in Georgia, just the excitement, the joy around this national championship, the celebration has been incredible. But Kirby's been amazing. I'd say really since the big celebration we had between the hedges on January 17th, all that focus has been towards the 2022 season. And that's that drive that he's got. And you know, it's very similar to some of the great coaches in SEC history. So I think everyone, Kirby at the top of the list, is excited about the new challenge for 2022. And certainly from a fan's point of view, and I don't know if Kirby would ever say that, it's nice going into this season not having that monkey on our back or the elephant on our chest of having come so close but not having won that national title since 1980. So now Georgia's accomplished everything on Kirby's watch, and I think everybody's excited to see how the Dogs follow it up this season.
Jeff, how do you see the rest of the SEC East? And I don't know, maybe it's Tennessee, maybe it's Florida, Carolina, Kentucky. Do you think there's a team that worries you if you're Georgia?
I think the East has gotten a lot better. And I think when you look at it, it starts Tennessee has obviously got the fit with Josh Heupel. They get Hooker back. Florida's always got players. We know that. I think Billy Napier has enthused the Gator Nation. They only had one down year, and it's they're just a couple of years removed from going to back-to-back major bowls. And again, Florida's always got talent. Shane Beamer at South Carolina, they got Spencer Rattler in there, and they beat Florida and Auburn last year. Kentucky, Mark Stoops, what a job he's done there. He's got Levis back. He's got Rodriguez back. So I think the East has gotten a lot better and a lot more competitive. And I think that's a great fight to see who that top challenger for Georgia is. In the West, I know a lot of people are looking at A&M maybe as a number one contender against Alabama. I wouldn't sleep on Ole Miss or State. And LSU has always got players. And I'm just going to tell you this. LSU won national championships with Les Miles and Ed Orgeron. I have a feeling Brian Kelly will do very well in Baton Rouge.
And Jeff, before we let you get up out of here, I mean, you talk about the SEC top to bottom. I mean, obviously the profile of the SEC just continues to grow from the brands, the head coaches, the salaries. But Oklahoma and Texas is going to be coming to the SEC here real soon. And a Manning, not named Eli, not named Archie, not named, a Peyton, but Arch is going to be in the SEC except he's going to be sporting that burnt orange. Where do you see the SEC going in the next couple of years, especially with the coaches getting $100 million contracts and just the profile seemingly going through the roof before we even expand it?
Even tougher to win, a lot more pressure, and a lot more money. And I think the next thing right now, the league's got to try and figure out, are they going to go divisions? Are they going to do pods? Are they going to go away from divisions and say play 9 games and play your 4 most common opponents and shuffle the others? So that's one of the things I think moving forward, the devil's in the details. And guys, trying to make 16 fan bases happy, especially we're talking about fans like Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, now Oklahoma, Texas, Alabama. That is going to be a tricky situation. But the crazy thing to me about college football, it's the game that probably changed the least, for such a long period, especially after integration in the South in the early 70s. But then I kind of feel like over the last 10 years, there's been more change than there was, say, in the previous 40 years before. So it seems to be an inevitable thing. So I guess you just got to jump on board and embrace what we have moving forward. But we do know this, the SEC is going to be the toughest league.
Jeff Dantzler, Georgia Bulldogs Radio Network, Bulldog Illustrated, our guest here on 3 and Out. Jeff, thanks so much.
Always a pleasure, guys. Anytime. Y'all do a great job. I always enjoy being on with you.
Thanks so much. And we'll come back and talk about Stetson Bennett. Ben, I know you said earlier, the most important player for the Georgia Bulldogs. We'll let you expand on that, and we'll look at what expectations are for him when we come back here on 3 and Out.
what do you need me to do? 29 touchdown passes, 7 picks. You know what I'm saying? Was able to go back and beat Alabama, losing them in that, and after losing them in the SEC championship game. JT Daniels is on team number 3. So all I'm saying is, what else do you want from him? Most guys, you say, hey, man, I'm not going to give you a number 1 receiver. George Pickens going to be out all year. Jermaine Burton going to be in and out of the lineup. It's going to be you and a freshman named Brock Bowers with an okay run game and a great defense. We can win that championship. They did it. So keep on making excuses for a guy like Stetson Bennett. And I know people saying Stetson Bennett is older than Jake Fromm. You know the difference is? Jake Fromm went to the national championship. Stetson Bennett won it. I don't know what else you can ask for, dude. I just think he's going to come back in 2022, and he ain't going to say it out loud, BJ. New haircut, same player. He going to make everybody feel that, and I think it's going to be rough for the competition.
A lot of people have talked about, hey, you have these 3 dynamic tight ends. We know about Brock Bowers, obviously, Eric Gilbert, Darnell Washington. Now, A.D. Mitchell out wide. You have great players everywhere. How do you see the passing game this season? And if you're Stetson and you have 3 tight ends that are all probably going to be big time, draft picks, you have guys that are capable at receiver, but also tight end. How do you utilize all that talent as a quarterback? And do you think we'll see many offensive sets with Stetson Bennett looking to throw the ball where there are 3 tight ends on the field? I
think it will. I mean, I think it's known as trade personnel, 3 tight ends. And look, Eric Gilbert, he's a guy. I think Eric Gilbert, as far as like just prototypical, he's the most prototypical guy, the freakish guy. As far as like ability, that's going to be obviously Brock Bowers, and just inline blocking tight end. That's a big body. It's going to be Darnell Washington. I'm going to say this. They're going to dictate if they're going to be out on the field. Like, that's why you practice. That's why you go out there every single day. They call plays on Saturday for what work during the week. I do think those guys are going to be, but Brock Bowers is going to get double. I would double Brock Bowers. I would make sure Eric Gilbert can go out there and run the full route tree, and Darnell Washington, you getting the one-on-one coverage. I think it's a great plan because they're going to utilize 2 tight ends a lot. But if you are a defensive coordinator, it gives you fits. Darnell Washington is all of 6'5", 6'6", 260. I think Eric Gilbert now, I think he's at about 255, 255. And then you got the Swiss Army knife and a guy like Brock Bowers. Good luck with it. And defensive coordinators, they are right now going to look at trade personnel. The problem is, who's going to cover Brock one-on-one? Good luck with that. Eric Gilbert, I mean, it's been a couple of years, BJ, since we've seen him actually out there on the field. And Darnell Washington's proven to be a guy to say, hey, man, I'm going to have to do less with more. I'm not going to get as many opportunities. But, as a former tight end myself, hey, my second year in the league, it was myself, Bo Scaife, and Aaron Kenny. And I used to love being out there with those 2 dudes because it forces defenses in certain coverages. Slot cornerbacks are too small. Safeties might not be big enough. You're going to have to pick your poison. So those linebackers that can run and hit, can you cover? I think Coach Mike and the company going to be licking their chops saying, hey, man, we got an opportunity to go out there and really bludgeon people, because if the running game is what we want it to be and these guys can go out there and make plays and move the chains, it's gonna be a beautiful offense to watch.
And the championship aside, if you can even say that, and the MVPs and the iconic throw late and all that, Stetson Bennett last year was top 5 in the country in passer rating.
Yes.
And I'm a big fan of that stat. 29 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, right around 10 yards per attempt or over that, almost 2,900 yards, 64.5% completion percentage, had over 200 rushing yards. I wanted to get your thoughts on this. I think you're going to see that completion percentage increase. I think you're going to see Stetson Bennett be up around, 67, 68, 69% with his completion percentage. I think when you have those three tight ends, you can make throws in the middle of the field that can open things up on the perimeter. I think you're going to see, more efficient would just be remarkable given what we saw a year ago. But don't be surprised if Stetson Bennett improves upon an already good completion percentage from last season. Again, I expect that 64.5 to go up a couple of points.
I expect it to go up too, BJ, but for a different reason. He's comfortable. Who has more experience coming back in the SEC at quarterback?
Yeah, the confidence has got to be off the charts.
And he's understood to this. I won the national championship without a number 1 receiver. Every national championship team, if we go back to 2013, and man, who was that? Kelvin Benjamin. Oh man, well, what about with Mac Jones, Devonta Smith? Oh, well, what about Percy Harvin? What? Oh, so when Georgia won that, Brock Bowers, what tight end, freshman at that. So I think BJ, the confidence that he's built, and he knows that, hey, Georgia will go as I go. The poise of the University of Georgia, the resiliency of the University of Georgia, the personality of the University of Georgia, You know, rising says what says a minute. You can say what you want about defense. You can say what you want about schemes. You can say what you want. The quarterback will dictate. If that's the case, why does Hendon Hooker give Tennessee what they give him? Why are people going crazy over Bryce Young and Will Levis? Oh, my God, you know what they got? You ask two things, you go to a team. Hey, yeah, who they playing, who the quarterback? That's any line of football. People go, says a minute. Yeah, he got a ring. Hendon Hooker, Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, Spencer Rattler, KJ Jefferson. Nope. Stetson Bennett. Now, if he walk in the room with all those other guys, yeah, man, that guy right there, yep. Jordan Davis and the Kobe Dean and come, they get to say, man, hey, ask him about Stetson. So at the end of the day, BJ, I think he's going to be on the revenge tour. He's not going to say it out loud. But BJ, you know, just like I know, I'm tired of people questioning me, man. What else do y'all want from me? I'm in a room full of 5 stars, and I'm the only one in there that's a 3-star. I'm the only one in here that had to get asked to come back. I'm the only one in here walking.
And the questions are already being asked. Okay, is he going to get drafted? Is he going to be a pro prospect?
Yeah, well, this is the thing, right? Validation in college is not if I get drafted or not. Validation in college is what did I do when I played. There are 2 quarterbacks in Georgia history that got national championship, was only one of them was out to throw the ball. Buck Bellew handed the ball off to Herschel Walker. I mean, everybody would have done that. No, this man had to win the game for them because all the talk about defense is defense. I know it ended with a interception for a touchdown, BJ, but he had to make throws. Stetson Bennett has answered the bell every single time. He's coming back for the encore. And at the end of the day, right, Stetson Bennett started. Tua won the national championship. He played in the second half, right? All I'm saying is ain't too many people going to do what he's done. It's just the fact that I'm sorry that, you know, I don't come from big people, right? So I'm not going to be a big dude. But I'm still bigger than Kyler Murray, and he did not win the Natty. Still bigger than Baker, did not win the Natty. Still bigger than Russell Wilson. Still didn't. I don't know what else he got to do, man. Not too many people. It ain't for everybody. BJ, I showed you the schedule for a student athlete. You go, not doing it. Guess what else most people can't do? Start at the University of Georgia at quarterback. And he's doing it the last 3 years. They've been trying to get rid of him. Brock Vandagriff and Carson Beck and those boys, they still say, hey, man, I got to respect what I see this dude do every day. Because if they were better, BJ, they would find a way to get him out. $100 million quarterback because of a guy that you asked to come back that you didn't even give a scholarship to once he got back on campus. Shout out to that young man, Stetson Bennett.
Absolutely. He's got the championship, comes back as one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football. BJ Bennett, Ben Troop here with you. More 3 and Out next. Ben, tomorrow on the show, Kylie McDaniel, ESPN Baseball Insider, will join us. A lot to talk about with the Atlanta Braves, including Michael Harris's new big contract, which we will get to. Vaughn Grissom listed as one of Kylie's top 50 prospects in Major League Baseball. Mike Soroka, could we, potentially see him in the future? But a lot to talk about, a lot of good news recently for the Atlanta Braves.
A lot of credit, sir. You are doing it your way. You are making sure you are keeping the band together. And it seemed like, though, everything, I mean, even Freddie Freeman, man, I keep going back to that. I mean, you did the right thing when it came to that. But I think, BJ, you got to be able to keep your core together. You got to be able to keep that young talent. That farm system of the Braves has been going well. But Michael Harris, I mean, Austin Riley, Matt Olson. I'm just looking forward to the future, BJ, because you already, if they're good now, and obviously you peak in baseball a lot later. But I got to say this, though. To everybody that was saying the whole get rid of Ronald Acuna Jr., you better think again, man. This dude can impact without even hitting the baseball. Shout out to Alex Anthopoulos. Shout out to them Braves. They're going to be around for a long time.
And then tonight you'll have Braves and Mets game 3 of a 4-game series. It is Jake Odorizzi, 4-4 with a 3.80 ERA, taking on Max Scherzer, 8-2 with a 1.93. And then tomorrow night you'll have Jacob deGrom for the Mets. I believe an unannounced starter for the Braves as of right now, but you'll hear Braves baseball, Braves and Mets game 3. Braves up 2-0 in the series coming up immediately following the show. We'll come back, talk Braves, Michael Harris, Clemson football, all next. 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. It is 3 and Out. BJ Bennett alongside Ben Troop. Hope you're doing well. It's been a busy show, a lot to cover, including what has been a lot of news with the Atlanta Braves. Good news. The Braves have won 2 in a row over the Mets. You'll hear game 3 in that series coming up in just a little bit, a little over an hour. Jake Odorizzi against Max Scherzer. But, Ben, last night you and I were on the phone, and you say, I think they just extended Michael Harris. And we're going, what? Wow. 8 years, $72 million extension. That includes a club option for 31 for $15 million, $20 million in 32. So congratulations to Michael Harris. The Braves continue to sign their young talent for not only a couple of years, but long-term deals. I think the Braves are in a place to be very, very good for a very long time. Alex Anthopoulos is not only looking at a team that wants to repeat as World Series champions, and they're going to make every effort to, but expects to be in the mix for a decade, a near decade, close to a decade, maybe even longer than that. So the Atlanta Braves in a great spot. Braves and Mets later tonight, but how about Michael Harris? Not long ago was in Double-A, has come up, has been spectacular offensively, defensively. I think he's probably the front runner to be the Rookie of the Year in the National League. Gets an 8-year, $72 million extension, again with a club option for $15 million in 31 and $20 million in 32.
Nothing says appreciation more, BJ, than going out there and taking care of your young talent. I think the thing about a guy like Alex Anthopoulos, it shows that what he's doing behind the scenes is going to the, going to the front office and saying, look, let's go out here and take care of these guys. Why? Because it's a number of years. Even though they don't got no cap, it's the number that it's a cap hit in a sense every single year. I mean, it goes back to Austin Riley, right? Then you talk about a guy like Michael Harris. If you're Vaughn Grissom, you're saying to yourself, if I can keep going, but it just shows that they value in these guys. Everybody always asks, how is it going to be looked upon to be a Brave if you're a guy in the farm system and you're playing there? Well, this goes all the way back to Ronald Acuna Jr. I just think that, and Ozzie, I think what he did for them, BJ, when Kevin was telling us, he did not have to do that. They could have went to arbitration. Then we started saying, okay, he was able to take care of a guy, in Matt Olson when he had to go ahead and make that decision when everything would kind of fell through with Max Fried. Then you look at a guy like Austin Riley coming off of 30. This is 30 for 30. That will be 30 home runs in 2021. Already surpassed 30 home runs in 2022 coming off an MVP season. Now I know the question they're going to go to, what about Dansby Swanson? Well, I think Dansby Swanson and Max Fried are going to be top priorities going into the offseason. But you're looking at this. I mean, you got all these guys I just mentioned for at least the next 7 years. Matt Olson the next 7 years. Austin Riley the next 10 years.
How important is that in sports where you normally have, great roster volatility in the pros where sometimes, half of your starting lineup could be different the next year. I mean, yes, there's still some guys. There are always going to be changes personnel-wise. But you look at Atlanta, you look at your core, and it's not only 2 or 3 years. It's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. I mean, how invaluable is that been in pro sports?
It's everything, BJ, because it's like this. There is a correlation in sports when you look at certain things that doesn't really change. The longest tenured coach, in the SEC is Nick Saban. So those players coming in and those players that's been there know I'm going to have, continuity right here at the top, right? When you look at, there was a correlation with the Pittsburgh Steelers always being a great organization. They've only had 3 coaches in their existence. So I know the guys that are going to be here. When you talk about sports is how do I keep the guys together? When you go back to the New England Patriots, the reason why they was good for as long as they were, because the best player on their team took less money to keep guys around. He's doing it right now with the Tampa Bay Bucks. Now, I think what's going on right now, BJ, when you're talking about the Braves, is they're saying, hey, yeah, if we can get them quicker, right, we can show them appreciation. That means that, yes, does that mean we're not going to have to re-up some of these guys within this contract? But we've already given them one. Michael Harris, right, a month and a half ago, or 2.5 months ago, he was down there in Double-A. Now, he's already signed an extension. A guy like Austin Riley, 2 weeks ago, he was making whatever he wanted in arbitration. Now he's gotten $212 million coming. Matt Olson grew up a Brave. Now he's going to be here for the next 8 years. I think the thing is, it's infectious when you on a team that's winning, on a team that matters, and in an organization that cares about you. Michael Harris is a personality. Ozzie Albies is a personality. Ronald Acuna is a personality. They don't tell them, hey man, as long as y'all playing, be who you are. Man, those ain't a personality. He blends right in. Dansby Swanson, Atlanta guy, number 1 overall pick, by the way. I just think that, BJ, what you're seeing right now with Dallas Anthopoulos saying, it is my job to not make their jobs harder. It is my job to take care of them when they balling, and they balling. Michael Harris, I mean, Andrew Jones was in the stands. He made a play, and Andrew Jones was like, Like, that's, if Andrew Jones say you good in center field, you good. I just think that what I saw last night, BJ, and this is what I do now. If it says Braves press release, you can take it to the bank. I said, BJ, they just take, and that's what you want. Most teams, they're going to switch up every single year. 2 things going on with the Braves. They take care of their own, and people that don't play for the Braves want to play for them. Guys that play for the Braves go, yeah, man. I mean, you don't think Soler want to be a Brave? You don't think Jock Peterson want to be a Brave? Oh, Rosario is a Brave. So shout out to Alex Anthopoulos, BJ. He's doing it his way, and he don't got to break the bank to do it. That's the thing. How does he do it within the confines of the money that the front office is saying he can do? He said, hey, man, let's sign him up right now. Why? Because it looks better for us in the long run. The world ain't the same a year from now, let alone 10. I got Ronald Acuna for the next 8, 9. I got, Matt Olson for the next 8. I got Michael Harris. Michael Harris is a piece up, 8-town downer. Now this man got $72 million coming. He's 21 years old. Life is good. When I was 21 years old, I was getting drafted to the National Football League, and I appreciate it. I wasn't giving $72 million. I wasn't a Michael Harris Jr. either, by the way, too. I'm not saying that. But yes, BJ, with the Braves doing that way, and if you thought the Braves was going anywhere, they're not, because they won it all last year. Ronald Acuna Jr. was hurt, and they won it. So they're building their team to not be around the best player on their team. But I'm just saying, BJ, at the end of the day, if they can get them a left fielder, oh, my goodness, because run on Michael Harris and Ronald Acuna Jr. if you want to. Because as great as they are with the bat, as great as they are, stealing bases, they got cannons in the right arms. But shout out to Michael Harris, man. I mean, great personality, great player. And now, man, he's $72 million richer. I don't know when it kicks in, BJ, but he's going to be checking his bank account every day until that money hits. But shout out to him.
Yeah, he's been great offensively, defensively. Again, clutch moments. I mean, coming through. We were chatting with, we've chatted with, Ben Ingram and Bud Ellis, so many people who have said, look, I remember this moment. So, and you mentioned Vaughn Grissom, he's a guy, could he play left field long term? I mean, we'll see what happens with Dansby Swanson. I know there's still some decisions to make, but a ton of momentum for the Braves on the field, off the field, the Michael Harris contract. Everybody's excited about that. You have a 2-game lead in this series. Obviously, you're still 3.5 back, but you've played 2 games against the Mets. You've won 2 games against the Mets. Now, Max Scherzer tonight, Jacob deGrom tomorrow night. I've heard a lot of people say you have to win one of those 2 games to kind of maybe have a realistic chance at the division, because if you lose the next 2, even though you feel good right now, you will have split the 4-game series and not made up any ground. And right now, the Braves are chasing the Mets. If you win tonight, it is 2.5 games, and that is or lose tonight, win tomorrow. I mean, you're talking about 3.5 games. I think that's enough to very much have the Mets' attention. Now, you have a significant lead for the first wild card spot in the National League. That matters. But the momentum the organization has, I mean, how good are you feeling? It's Jake Odorizzi against Max Scherzer tonight. And we didn't even mention you had a good single-A performance from Mike Soroka coming back from just terrible injury luck. So a lot of positivity around the Braves. On the field, you've kind of gotten right against the Mets after what was a very disappointing showing up in New York City. But you have Odorizzi and Scherzer tonight. Can the Braves keep it going?
I think the Braves can keep it going, BJ, momentum-wise. I think the thing about a guy like Scherzer is, you got to be aggressive. You know how great – Scherzer is better than great right now. I mean, he's out of this freaking world, what he does. But he doesn't play the whole game, though. I think it's about quality at bats. I think it's about, kind of putting the ball in play. And I think you come in with a lot of confidence. I think this is the thing, BJ. If the Braves are 0-2 coming into this game, you're very worried. But now it's, hey man, there's a reason why the Mets saved their best 2 for the last 2 games. I mean, that's not by coincidence. But Dansby Swanson went yard off of Scherzer last time they played against each other. I just think that this momentum that's going on, Truist, y'all know what y'all need to do as far as it's going to be electric there. I just think that BJ, with a guy like Scherzer, it's about being aggressive. He's going to be aggressive. You have to be aggressive. I don't know if you quote, baseball. I don't know if you got to take what he gives you, because he doesn't give you any freaking thing. But be aggressive at the plate. Hopefully you can jump on him, get a run or 2, because if he gives up a run or 2, that's going to rattle him. That's going to force him to kind of get out of his zone. But it's Scherzer. I think the thing about a guy like Scherzer, you respect him so much that you kind of got to go out there and say, hey, man, I know who he is, but I got to play my game. And you know, like I know, BJ, if the Braves get up on you in Truist, they hard to deal with. They really, really are. 13 in one game, a shutout last night.
And you've won what, 8 in a row? And,
yes.
and I think you mentioned this earlier in the show. Ronald Acuna has been really hot.
Very hot.
And had, what, a 3 for 5 night the other night? Had what, a 4 walk night the other night?
I think it's the first
amazing.
time in his career with 4 walks. I think I always look at this. The most respected players in sports, you got to go right at him. Like, don't do nothing cute. Scherzer ain't gonna be throwing high and outside. He's coming right at you. You know who I am. You know what I do. Let's see. It's real similar to I almost said similar to what Strider does at the plate. Strider is very, very aggressive. I mean, I throw hard and I throw very fast. That's what I do. Scherzer, he's just so smooth at the plate. I mean, on the mound, he can do whatever he wants. But BJ, once again, they got to get 1 out of these next 2. They got to. This is just me. I'd rather go ahead and get it over with tonight because DeGrom is coming, and as great as Scherzer is, good Lord, DeGrom, if there's anybody
if you win tonight, tomorrow it's all good. I mean, but listen, you talk about Vaughn Grissom, he's not lost yet.
He's not.
As an Atlanta Brave, and he's gotten on base and scored in every game or something crazy. I mean, this Braves team has incredible momentum.
They do, and I will say this: at the end of the day, if you are, going out there with the Braves today, just be yourself. I mean, the thing about Harris and Grissom and Acuna, and Olsen and Riley, these guys, they play well together, and this is how well they play together. Marcell Ozuna is going to be in the lineup. Unfortunately, he's going to have to play left field, and unfortunately, hopefully, they don't hit it in left field. But that's how good the Braves are. You are deficient as it gets in left field. But I think, BJ, a blend of young talent and crafty veterans, a blend of personalities, right, and consummate professionals, but a culture that is hard to deal with. If the Braves get on you early, look out, because Matt Olson, we don't talk about him enough. He is not Freddie Freeman. He don't got to be. He's about as good. I know who the best first baseman is, and I know who the second best first baseman is, and that's depending on who you ask. I know Freddie Freeman is the best first baseman. Matt Olson is a double waiting to happen, but if he can get a hold of it, he can leave the yard as well.
Braves and Mets in just a little bit. We'll come back, though, and talk some Clemson football here on 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. The college football season is here. The preseason polls are out. Everybody's talking about who should be top 5, who should be top 10. We'll have real games to debate and dissect coming up in just a couple of weeks. The Clemson Tigers, you'll see in the top 10 of just about every poll. Expectations are high. And with us now to talk about those Clemson Tigers from Clemson Sports Talk, Lawton Swan. Lawton, good afternoon. How are you?
Hey, guys. Always good to be on with you.
Thank you so much for coming on. So in your mind, this is a team that returns a lot of talent. Some people would say, hey, a little bit of a step back last year. What are expectations for Clemson this preseason?
You know, I think in the inner sanctum of Clemson, the expectations haven't changed at all. It's to win the Atlantic Coast Conference and to get back into the college football playoff. I think they've recruited well enough to do that. I think the competition that they'll face this year, for the most part, sort of gives them that opportunity, but it's all probably going to come down to DJ Uiagalelei. If you get the kid that you saw 2 years ago in Notre Dame, then you got a great chance to, go 11-1, maybe go undefeated. If you get the guy you saw a year ago, which was about 30 pounds heavier than he is today, then you might see a team that ends up, with 10 wins or maybe even, like a 9-3 season. But I tend to lean in that DJ being lighter will be more confident and will be, have that escapability that you really need in this day and age at the quarterback spot. So I feel really good about where this team is. But, yeah, the expectations haven't changed. It's to compete for championships.
Lord, even sticking with a guy like DJU, sometimes, right, you have to kind of be there all year to kind of see what it is. I mean, we see the guys that came before him. He see what Trevor was able to do. Obviously, you see what Deshaun was able to do and Kelly Bryant. It seemed like, hey, man, just put me in. I got all these great players around me. How much do you think he's grown in a year? You talk about being able to lose weight. You talk about the big-time national NIL deals and what we saw him against Notre Dame. How much you think he's grown in a year?
He seemed more mature at the ACC kickoff when we got a chance to sit down with him. He was also dealing with some family issues that weren't very well publicized last year. And, I think we can all sit back and easily say, yeah, but he's a college quarterback. He should be able to handle those types of things and not let them to get to him. But I think he did, in some respects, carry some of that baggage. But, yeah, I just think that, for DJ, there's a recognition that what happened last year for him wasn't acceptable. And he's taken that responsibility on. And he understands that he was the straw that stirs the drink, whether that drink has injured wide receivers or running backs or, when you're the quarterback in a power program, I mean, it's all going to fall on your shoulders. And to me, it felt like he was much more understanding of that this past, during the opportunities we got to sit down with him at the ACC kickoff. What I didn't hear from him, to be honest with you, Ben, that kind of concerned me is I want a little more fire, right? Like I want a little more passion. But he's kind of a laid back guy. And anytime I bring that up, my mind immediately flashes Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence was kind of that way too, right? But maybe wasn't criticized for it because he won a lot. And so, I think if DJ wins, guys like me who are critical of that kind of laid-back, laissez-faire attitude, their mouths will be closed pretty quickly as long as he's performing on the field.
Lawton Swan, Clemson Sports Talk, here with us on 3 and Out. Lawton, we've seen some great defensive lines at Clemson. How good is this group going to be?
I tell you, as good as they are, I think there might be as deep as any we've seen in a long time, and versatile too, which is something that I think Clemson really focuses on. I mean, outside of Tyler Davis and Trey Williams on the interior, most of those guys can really maneuver around and play a lot of different spots. Like Brian Brzee, it wouldn't surprise me if you see some packages where he ends up on the edge, and he's going to be a monster coming back off of his injury. Obviously, a little bit of a blow to Clemson with Xavier Thomas, who's been around that program for years, getting hurt, but he's going to probably be back after that Georgia Tech game. Just a little setback for a guy who's physically really set himself up to be successful in his final year. I mean, I think his body fat percentage is lower than it's ever been, and he was explosive as a freshman. So to see him, get this opportunity, and obviously Miles Murphy and KJ Henry, I mean, they're deep. As a matter of fact, a name nobody ever talks about that I think could be like a breakout guy for them is DeMonte Capehart. I mean, they are that deep across the front, guys. They can run probably 12 guys in there and nobody's really going to go, oh man, who's that guy getting a chance? I mean, they've got that much talent up front. And Nick Eason, who played at Clemson, played in the NFL, Super Bowl champion, he came back when Todd Bates left to go take that job at Oklahoma with Brent Venables. I think a lot of people thought that, that was a concern. But I would say on the recruiting trail, basically what we see from the coaching, he's hands-on because he's been there and been in the trenches at the highest level. And he's teaching these guys a lot. So I think that they've actually taken a step forward. And I believe in December when Bates left, a lot of people would have thought, how do you replace him? I think not only did they replace him, they may have upgraded.
And Lord, even sticking with the defensive line, how important is it? Because if I'm a young guy coming in, I'm thinking, okay, I got to wait my time. Even though Venables has moved on, he set a precedent to be like, no, if you're ready to go, you just got to work yourself into the rotation. I mean, how many times are we saying, hey, man, something you get with Clemson all the time is, yeah, I know you like this guy, but that guy behind him, talk about being able to have guys that are ready to go to say, hey, we kind of do it in bunches around here. Like, we make sure that if you're good enough, you're going to get a chance to get out there on Saturday. Yes, the starters are going to get the bulk of the plays, but you got to be able to be impactful when you jump in there. Talk about having that, like that workload for these young guys to be able to come and say, if you're ready to go, you're going to get a chance to play on Saturday.
Well, Ben, you know all too well. I mean, the heat that we deal with in the South in those early season games from like September through the back end of October. I mean, the more guys reps you can get, the better off you are at the end of a ball game when you've got some fresh legs from some of your more talented players. And that's the way Clemson's kind of built their system. It's the reason that they don't have a lot of guys who say, well, I don't want to come there because you got a log jam in front of me. If you can play, they're gonna get you on the field. And so from that standpoint, I think that it not only builds opportunities, early on in your career, but then by the time you're a sophomore or a junior, you've got some experience under your belt, and that just advances your development and understanding the game and seeing the field. And there's a lot of nuances that those guys in the trenches deal with that, the guys like me who are in the secondary growing up, we can't appreciate. And I think that the sooner you can get guys live reps at the highest level, at the highest level they've played, the better. And so that's where it's really a benefit for Clemson.
When you look at the ACC Atlantic, Lawton, I mean, you see some teams that are ranked in the preseason top 25. I know a lot of people are talking about North Carolina State this preseason. How do you think the ACC Atlantic is going to line up? Clemson's the favorite, but when you look at the rest of the division, might it be a tougher run through the division than it's been in years past?
Yeah, it's so funny, right? Because all offseason, before any polls come out or anything, it is basically NC State's league. I mean, you listen to anybody, it sounded like Clemson, was chopped liver trying to figure out how to chase down the Wolfpack. Then when the people got to put their money where their mouth is, the polls come out, the power rankings come out, ACC media picks come out, and it's Clemson on top. So, I think from that standpoint, the league is better. I think NC State certainly will give Clemson a run for their money in Death Valley. The problem they'll have, in my opinion, though, is that they beat Clemson a year ago, and having that loss in their that taste in their a bitter taste in their mouth for Clemson, they'll be ready for that game. They're going to overlook NC State. They're going to come, correct, as they say, because they understand what happened a season ago. And they don't want to lose back-to-back games to the Wolfpack. So I think it's going to be one of the Wolfpack's hardest games of the year, and not just because of who they're playing, but how Clemson will focus on that game. Wake Forest, obviously, Sam Hartman's deal. It'll be interesting to see how long he's out. The league does have, I think, some of the best quarterbacks in the country. I think going into the ACC kickoff, 14 teams, of the 14 teams, they brought 9 quarterbacks, guys. 7 of them are on like preseason quarterback watch list, and DJ wasn't one of them. And I think he's got the ability to be the best quarterback in the league. So, I think from that standpoint, the Atlantic Division got a lot of talented quarterbacks. At the end of the day, though, it still feels like Clemson and everybody else. What will be interesting to see how Jordan Travis and Florida State do. I know Mike Norvell's got a lot of confidence being built that he's going to turn that thing around in Tallahassee. And nothing could be better for the league, I think, than to see somebody really emerge as a national power and challenge Clemson.
Lord, one big issue this offseason was conference realignment. You look around you, everybody's adding teams trying to go to this conference, go to that conference, and there is that big domino that everybody wants named Notre Dame. Now, we know Notre Dame is in the ACC. We know that Notre Dame plays in the ACC and every other sport. Where is the reputation of the ACC right now? We know that Clemson is still the top dog. Take nothing away from what Pitt and Wake was able to do last year. We see. I don't know how they're going to replace Sam Howell and his production at North Carolina. And as you mentioned, it's NC State's division to win. But where do you see the reputation of the ACC right now? Can they indeed get Notre Dame to commit to them in the ACC? And do you see teams being added to the ACC years to come?
Well, here's a lot of SEC fans aren't going to like this next take, but this is the reality of the poll today and the way it's set up. I believe I did this during my show on the coaches poll, right? So there were 6 SEC teams in the top 25, and there were 5 ACC teams. But if you included Notre Dame, guys, and this is kind of crazy to me because I'm not somebody that's going to try to convince you that the ACC is better than the SEC. I don't believe that. But if you took the average of the rankings of those 2 leagues and you included Notre Dame, the ACC's ranking was like a 12.6 and the SEC's ranking was a 13.2. It was just slightly better for the ACC this year, but that's because there's belief in NC State and Wake Forest. I mean, you're kind of seeing some of those teams in the teens, and there were some SEC teams that are a little higher up in the 20s. All that being said, I just think that, if you're the Atlantic Coast Conference right now, to solidify it, you've got to figure out how to bring Notre Dame in because there are just a handful of programs out there that still move the meter. And although the Fighting Irish have rarely had a pull that was significant in my life, occasionally they show up, right? But they still have that mega draw of eyeballs. And that's what this is about. As much as it's about being better at football for your league, it's about how many people will tune in because of the dollar signs that you can get from ESPN, Fox, anybody that's bidding on these deals. So to me, when you just factor Notre Dame into the league, it does change completely the dynamics of how people see it. And I think that's significant for the Atlantic Coast Conference. But at this time, Ben, I don't think the league's going to move. I think they're comfortable at 14. And I don't think the Fighting Irish are going to do anything because it looks like they're going to get, paid handsomely with their new deal. So, I'd love to see them in the league as a full-time member because I know what it would do for the entirety of the conference. I just don't think we're going to see it. And that's a tough spot for the ACC to be in given their current TV deal.
Lawton Swan, Clemson Sports Talk, our guest. Lawton, thanks so much for the time.
Guys, keep crushing it, man. Always appreciate it.
Lawton Swan talking Clemson and ACC football. We'll come back and talk Braves Mets next on 3 and Out. Ben, Braves and Mets coming up in just a little bit. Jake Odorizzi, Max Scherzer tonight. Can the Braves get one against Max Scherzer?
It's going to be rough, BJ. I mean, Scherzer is a guy that demands a lot of respect. But when I think about the momentum of this team, I think about the youth of this team. I think about the fact this team understands that they got to chase down those pesky Mets. And even if it comes at the expense of a guy like Scherzer, I don't feel good about it. But I do think because of that truest, with what they've done the last 2 games, maybe they can ride that momentum and get that game 3.
Yes, I need the optimism. I need game 3 or game 4. I mean, asking for both would be a lot. A 4-game sweep would be a lot, but I need one of the next 2.
Listen, if you told me Scherzer or DeGrom, I would take Scherzer only because Scherzer is on the mound tonight. Go ahead and get it done tonight because DeGrom, that's going to be a hard pill to swallow come Friday.
And we'll send you to Atlanta for the Braves and Mets coming up in just a moment. Again, it is Jake Odorizzi. He is 4-4 with a 3.80 ERA on the year. The Braves were able to add him from Houston against Max Scherzer, 8-2 with a 1.93 ERA. The Braves have won the first 2 in the series in Atlanta. Game 3 coming up next.